All right, let's try this again. Just tried recording, and of course, my computer thought it was a great time to do an update. But to be fair, it has been a while since I've turned this computer on. Just got done with a long distance move. So that's when part of the reason I haven't been able to get some videos out the last couple of weeks, but finally starting to settle back in and had time to actually make a video for Richmond. So let's dive into that. And then real quickly, I just want to say thank you. We finally hit 1,000 subscribers, or not subscribers, I guess followers over on Twitter today. So that was pretty cool, a big milestone for us. So thank you all for doing that. And now the next goal is just try to get the YouTube channel up to 1,000 as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But let's talk about Richmond. So this weekend's been interesting. We've had a lot of weather in the area, and that weather has canceled practice and qualifying that originally was scheduled. So we're basically coming into this weekend blind. We don't have any data points, as far as this weekend goes to lean on. So what are we really leaning on? Well, for me, I want to look at the most recent kind of short flat track that we were at. That's going to be Phoenix. And then I also want to look at just track history, but more or less track history at short tracks during this next gen era. So what did they do in 2022 and what have they done so far in the 2023 season at similar track types? Richmond's a little bit different of a track for a couple of reasons. Normally we don't see a lot of cautions here, so we get a lot of long green flag runs, which can change your lineup construction a little bit and just the way that the race plays out. But usually it's really long green flag runs. Sometimes people say it's more of a boring race, but usually from DFS purposes, boring races are the best races for DFS purposes because it's less chaotic, hopefully. And they're usually more easier, to predict. So was looking forward to having practice and qualifying to lean into, but that will kind of throw a fun surprise into the weekend. So the other thing to keep in mind, this track surface is extremely rough and just eats a live tire. So tire fall off is going to be very large. So that'll be fun. Seeing drivers come and go throughout the field. A lot of drivers could be on different strategies. If we see long green flag runs, some drivers could be like, hey, I'm just going to split this stage in half. Maybe I'm going to split it up into thirds. There's different ways to attack this race, assuming that it goes green. So that'll be fun. And the main thing that you really want to do when you get to these types of track types is you have 400 laps, which is a lot of laps. So at least I think it's 400 laps, or maybe it's 400 miles. I have to double check how many laps it is. But basically, you have a lot of laps. So you want to make sure that you're trying to nail as many dominators in your line as possible, because every time a lap clicks off, there's points awarded for fast laps and there's points awarded for who's leading that lap. So for me, I want to try to get, 2, 3, if I can, even maybe 4 potential lap leaders in my line, and then just build the rest of my line with some place differential plays, maybe some value plays. But this is a weekend you want to be more aggressive on drivers who have the ability to dominate than just sacrificing a driver who has the ability to dominate for more of a place differential play. And maybe you'll hit the optimal if you nail, who the 2 lap leaders are, who the 2 to 3 lap leaders are, and the right place differential plays. But for me, I'd rather just get as many of those potential lap leaders in my line to increase the chances that, one of the 3 to 4 drivers that I select is that driver that gets out front and leads laps. Because normally we'll have a couple of drivers that score, 70, 80, 90, sometimes even 100 plus points. And if you don't have that driver in your line, you're going to be in trouble. So you're going to see a lot of high interest for the top range, and I'll kind of explain why. So I don't want you to think I'm just taking the easy way out, but we'll start with Byron. So Byron's the most expensive on the slate, which is, I think, the first time he's been this most expensive. But if we're leaning on Phoenix this year, Byron and Larson were the show at Phoenix. So you got to like them coming into Richmond because they're 2 very similar tracks. So we're going to assume that Byron and Larson are going to have fast cars. They're going to unload well. And they start in, Byron starts close enough to the front where he can easily get the lead early. And Larson starts, far enough forward that I don't think he's going to interfere with Byron more or less in stage one, but I could see him moving through the field, giving you some place differential points, running some fast laps, and then maybe getting the lead maybe after the competition caution, or maybe some point in stage two. Harvick has been just very consistent. He also was very fast at Phoenix. That was really cool to see. It's usually, Kevin Harvick and then the rest of the SHR team, and it's not a very close comparison. Harvick is very good, and a lot of the team's energy and resources are being dumped into this 4 team. So really like Harvick. Byron, Harvick, Larson, Hamlin and Truex are probably my favorite dominator plays, potential dominator plays that we have on the slate today. I think Christopher Bell makes for a really good place differential play that also has the ability to lead laps. But if I just had to nail who my lap leaders are, it's going to be Byron, Harvick, Larson, Hamlin, and Truex. Those are the 5 I feel the most confident in. So I want to try to get, 2 to 3 of those drivers in all of my lineups, just because that's where I'm drawing the line in the sand. I think they're going to lead the lap. So I want to try to target those drivers as much as possible. Larson was super fast at Phoenix. If it wasn't Byron, it was Larson. Larson doesn't have the best track history at Richmond. So maybe between the two of them, maybe you lean Byron for that reason. But he was still extremely fast at Phoenix. And again, that's what we're going to kind of lean on. So I'm going to be very interested. Christopher Bell starts 21st, gives you some more place differential upside. I think he can be a fine tournament play as well. But I think you can pay down for some other place differential plays. I don't think you have to go to Christopher Bell, but if you are trying to just get 1 lap leader or maybe 2 lap leaders and then nail those and play a Christopher Bell, hey, that might work out too. And hey, he might even get out to the lead. If he gets the lead with starting 21st, he's pretty much going to break the slate. Hamlin and Truex, pretty much the same play. Both extremely good at this track. Start right next to each other. Very good at managing their tires. These long green flag runs should benefit both of these drivers, and JGR has been pretty good at the short flat tracks. It's really just been JGR and Hendrick. So those are the 2 teams. I think if you can get a lot of Hendrick drivers or JGR drivers in your lineup, I think that's a good approach to take. And then I would say like Harvick and Chastain and maybe Blaney would be some other potential drivers to look at as well. Kyle Busch is someone I don't want to say I'm not going to get to, but he's kind of a driver I'm going to probably be maybe at the field with ownership or maybe even under the field with ownership. RCR, I just don't know what they're going to bring. I feel more confident in Byron, starting right behind Busch, and that's where I'm leaning. I think Byron's going to lead the laps. I don't think Busch is going to get out front. I don't think Bowman's going to be able to maintain the lead. So I think it's going to be Byron. But again, we don't have any data points, and Kyle Busch is significantly cheaper than Byron. So you could easily argue the other way. But from all the data points that I'm looking at, it just makes more sense in my mind to go with Byron. Logano is a fine play. I just like Ryan Blaney more for cheaper, starting right next to him. I said Bowman he's the points leader, so that's been pretty cool. But yeah, he starts on the pole. We do have a competition caution, which I think is going to limit his upside for whatever reason. If he does get the lead, when 20, 25 laps, they're going to flag the field, re-rack him, and he's going to have to do it again. And then the end of stage 1. So I just don't like the breaks in stage 1 that Bowman has going against him. And if they unload and he starts first and he goes, backwards and isn't leading you any laps, he's going to be losing you a lot of points. Reddick, I'm not really sure what to do with. He's probably more of a GPP option, starting 5th. I could see him getting the lead. I could also see him running right where he's at. I could see him, falling back 5 spots. It's hard to predict what Reddick's going to do, but I do like the JGR camp, and we know that the 2311 cars work really closely with the JGR camp, so he should have a pretty decent car. When I think of Richmond, it's not really a track that I think of Reddick for. I would more of a GPP dart in my opinion. I like Ryan Blaney, $8,800 starting 17th. He's pretty easy to get in line. So if you are attacking some lap leaders, maybe up here, maybe you could instead of like a fourth lap leader, maybe you get to Ryan Blaney, who gives you some place differential upside, who still has dominating upside too. So when I say a driver who can lead laps, like I'm talking about like a really anyone from Chastain up, I would say would be, potential lap leaders that have lap leading upside to them. And those would be good drivers to try to build around, just because of all the dominator point upside that this slate offers. Buscher starts 7th, just a little too close to the front. Keselowski starts 24th. I like Keselowski. He's a little expensive, but this is one of his better track types. The RFK cars have been a lot better this year. I just like if you can fit him into lines, especially for cash games. I like the place differential upside that he gives you. Suarez, just when I think of Richmond, I don't think of Daniel Suarez. He's pretty cheap. Doesn't have the best track history here. Starts 20th. I don't hate it. I just don't love it. Josh Berry should do pretty good. I'm hoping. My fear is he starts so deep in the field that he might get trapped a lap down. If you get trapped a lap down, it gets a lot harder to advance your position. Obviously, kind of limited on how far you can go. But it's a Hendrick car for $7,900 starting 30th with a guy that races a lot on these, or has a background in short track racing. So I like that. I just wish we had practice and qualifying to just give him some laps around this track, but he should figure it out. Not really going to get to Briscoe today. Almirola going to be a popular play. This is one of his best tracks. Starting deep in the field, more or less going to be a chalk play. Jam him in for cash games. I think he's a fine tournament option as well. If you know Almirola is going to be high owned, you're looking for some pivot plays, look no further than Bubba Wallace or even Austin Dillon. I like Austin Dillon a little bit more than Bubba Wallace, just because I think his upside is similar, but probably a little bit higher. Ty Gibbs is probably going to be a little bit more of a tournament play. A little risky, but it's a JGR car, starting in the front half of the field. Just don't really know how far he can advance his position. AJ Allmendinger, Austin Cindric, Eric Jones. Those were just drivers I just wasn't really landing on when I was building lines. Not that I don't like Cindric starting that high up. AJ, maybe. I just feel like he's probably going to finish around 20th. Same with Eric Jones. I really do like Bryant Preece, though. He's a lot cheaper than Eric Almirola. Starts right next to him in the same equipment. Also has a short track background. And this team needs a good run. And if there's anywhere he can do it, it would be Richmond. And then from there, I don't really have too much interest in basically anyone outside of Smith, Haley, and LaJoy. Again, we normally see it's long green flag runs, so it doesn't make sense to play an Alfredo, a Yaley, a Ware, Dylan. Like those drivers only make sense if they start super deep in the field, and we know a lot of drivers are going to wreck out and they might have the ability to finish like 25th. I don't think that's going to happen. Harrison Burton starts too close to the front of the field, in my opinion, starting 26th. Same argument with Todd Gillen. Cool to see him get a top 10 at COTA, but this isn't going to be a race to roster Gillen. LaJoy's more of a GPP, like punt play, maybe. His finishing potential is a lot higher than everyone else around here. So he has a lot of finishing potential points he can give you. He just starts 16th, so the place differential is going to be very limited. But he's been, finishing right around kind of in that range. So it's very likely for him. But I think if you're looking for a safer option, I'd much rather just play Justin Haley there starting 29th. If you can't afford Chandler Smith, which I think is also an interesting play, but it's also his first ever Cup start. I'll say that, starting the Cup race in basically dead last. So he can't lose you any points. I just think he's going to be riding around in the back, even though he did win the Xfinity Series race. I just don't know how high he's going to get. But he can't lose you any points. I just probably would lean with Haley or LaJoy. So yeah, really interesting slate. I think you can build a lot of different ways. It's really just coming down to, can you nail those lap leaders? And we know there's probably going to be 2 or 3 drivers that are going to lead a bulk of this race. And you just hope that you kind of get lucky and land on those drivers. So hopefully that was helpful. Good to be back. Good to record another video. Really appreciate getting to 1,000 followers on Twitter. Thanks again for doing that. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll try my best to get back to you in time. And then I'll also post this sheet up on Twitter for everybody, completely free. But everyone have a good weekend. Enjoy your month of April, and I'll catch you next weekend.